Hello. I'm normally supposed to be facing you on a Thursday in Gateway Hall C, but as you know, I'm supposed to be in Brussels, and what I think I'm going to do is take you through a kind of bridging lecture, which kind of tries to move on from the last lecture where we started probing into social networks and delve into a bit more detail about other types of networks, and maybe tease in some more information about, I guess, where it all started off for me in terms of social media, which is photo sites. Let me share with you my slides. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to disappear. I'll take you through the slides. If I need to pop up, I'll pop up, just in case you've fallen asleep, and we'll take things from there. If you're gonna hear some noise, I'm in my house. It's a Dewey. My son might be coming in at any moment, so if you hear noise, this is normal life. Okay, so let's go for this. So first slide. What we're going to find out now is that things are really going to start to blur. So in other words, we're moving from the idea of blogs and the weblog and the static site, which then enabled people to embed pictures and videos, to Facebook, to other social networks, to photo sharing sites, to videos. The whole idea, things are really going to start to blur. And unless we plan and approach our project strategically using the pyramid approach, which we've discussed in lecture 2, and where I've shared some slides with you, I think these tools are likely to be pretty much useless. What we're trying to do here is trying to think mindfully about social media, after all. It's a big question, isn't it? What have we learned till now? And how can we apply what we've learned about blogs and social networks and strategic planning to your project? Now, if I were you, I would really be starting to think about using some tools, but within a framework of attracting your target audiences. You should have been trying to do some research now on who your competition might be. You should be starting to do some writing on the basis of the cheat sheet that I gave you. Looking at these again, looking at our groups, you can see how many of you guys have gone in for catering, some healthy living over there. I think there's enough material out there, both in terms of competitive businesses and the world outside, and the fact that all of you have mobile devices to help you. It's that you can start working from now to start developing some of the content on the platforms that we're actually discussing. One thing you may notice, if you go back to looking at your post about blog ideas, is that I've been kind of looking at them and coming in with some comments. I hope you find them useful. I found most of the ideas very workable. Again, get cracking, guys. Let's go back to the idea of social networks, and I'm gonna recap some slides that we may have forgotten the last time we spoke about them, which I think are important within this, delving a bit deeper into social networks. We said there's a bit of a contrast, isn't there, and the conflict in between marketing people looking at online social networks as the distribution channel for marketing messages, and on the other side, there's the whole idea that marketeers, because of the horizontal conversations happening without anybody's permission on social networks like Facebook and the Tumblrs of this world, that marketeers are in some way disintermediated, that they are no longer important. And that's the conflict, that's the tension which is always happening out there. And which is why I keep on warning you that what you do share on social media, the content that you share, even if you produce it yourself, is not necessarily something that belongs to you. As soon as you embed it, put it on, use a third-party platform like Facebook, Facebook's job really is to try and monetize the content that you have. If you cross to the other side and you're a marketeer, Facebook provides you with extremely rich data on your target customers. And if you're prepared to pay, it may be extremely useful for you. If you go back, therefore, to where we are right now, we're in the age of smartphones. We're in the age of social media horizontal conversations, even more in the age of big data and the cloud. It's the interface between all of these four things which are revolutioning, creating a revolution in our lives. This uneasy dialectic, as we say, between technology and society. And if you look at it's absolutely crazy what's happening in a minute. 110,000 Skype calls. 347,000 tweets. 300 hours of YouTube uploaded in a minute. It's absolutely ridiculous how our generations have taken to all of these different types of tools and put them to good and bad use, I guess. Just a bit of a reminder of the theory as to what happens when things are deemed to be easy to use. And that was the major breakthrough when it came to blogs, when it came to the Friendsters of this world, which were the precursor to Facebook, is that they were very easy to use. And once we started using them, we found them extremely useful. And again, that started, then from that point of view, start using the tool more frequently than ever. And eventually you're using this tool on a daily basis. This was the technology acceptance model. And then another model, which is a bit more complex, so there's loads more arrows floating around over there, is based on the universal theory of acceptance model, which kind of tries to look at your gender and your age and your experience and whether you really want to use this thing, and other factors like social influence. Do your friends use a particular tool? Then you're more likely to use it. What's the effort involved? How quickly can you start working things out? The whole idea is that eventually you engage, and eventually your behavior starts to change as you engage with the medium. We talked about something called the social contagion, which is the way it kind of complements some of these individual focus theories, which implies that when an increasing number of people use a particular technology, it will be harder for others to resist using the technology. We all reach a tipping point. Everybody's using Facebook, so we all have to be on Facebook. And it arises to this combination, isn't it, of heightened awareness, something's going on, social learning. We learn how to start to behave a bit differently, I guess. So all our good or bad jokes about liking and the like generation, and that we all seem to think that by liking something we may change the world. Well, all of this has got us to behave remarkably differently to other young people of your age 10 years ago. And then there's this whole thing, isn't it, the desire to form part of a group. Nobody quite likes not to belong. And you go into users and gratification, that the audience is an active participant in the media selection based on its individual goals, media channels competing amongst each other, as well as other resources for the magic word, attention. You can watch TV, or you can fiddle with your smartphone. And people being active, self-aware, motive-driven when making media choices. So all of these things, in a way, these subtle, in a way, various academics trying to come up with theories right now to explain why we're all behaving differently. And from your point of view as marketeers, you're also trying to second guess where your target audience may be, so that you can engage with them. And again, we're looking at categories of gratification thought. One is diversion, why are we doing this? Well, it enables me to find entertainment in other places, maybe not in my real life. It might even nurture my personal relationships. I might start new relationships online. The other driver, of course, is information. I mean, none of us, I certainly can't live without the internet. I feel like my arms have been cut off if I lose the internet, and so do you. So it's useful also for the maintenance of even personal relationships. A lot of people are disconnecting from email now and just using whatever instant chat there may be. The whole idea of personal identity, for example, by watching other people, and how do other people represent themselves online, and a lot of people start copying that. We start to come up with new social norms, and we've gone through some of these things in previous lessons in terms of how to behave and how not to behave online. Maybe this is the undercurrent of the entire set of lectures. And the fourth thing is surveillance. Everybody watching everybody. It used to be about spying. Now people are spying on other people online. Maybe you might say that this is all that marketeers are doing. This is what they're paying the Facebooks of this world to do, to get access to data, which is still tantamount to surveillance. Okay, but again, we're also trying to satisfy an innate curiosity about what happens around us. So the last bit of theory really is that these social connections, which sometimes we form online, can be extremely strong, can be sometimes even be stronger than the people that you actually meet on a day-to-day basis, which may sound very odd, but it might also be that we're kind of managing our time. That if I'm going to give you my time online for 20 minutes, you might get more of my time in 20 minutes than somebody else who sees me regularly might. So again, this changes our behavior. So that's why the notion that some of these online relationships might actually surpass traditional face-to-face relationship. This notion of hyper-personal communication. I mean, it's the effect of what? Our imagination. I mean, the fact that there's somebody I don't really know except on a screen, on a video, or on email, that we have idealized visions of other people. Also that, as I said, we can prepare the way we are going to self-brand online better than we do when we say things without thinking, when we react quickly, when we are angry, when we are spontaneous. And then there's the big issue, isn't it, of asynchronous communication. The idea that even right now, this is a piece of asynchronous communication. I'm doing this now. I have no idea when you may wish to watch or listen to this. And the other difficult thing is the absence of non-textual clues. I mean, here I am now. I'm talking to a screen, to a slide. I don't know how you are reacting to this, and you have no idea. Right now, I'm drinking my coffee, which I should be really, before it goes cold. The big one, the social graph. We don't need to spend much more time about this. Let's just recap that whatever you do, whatever you listen to, whoever you friend, whoever you make contact with, whatever books, posts you read, whatever you like, is data of somebody else. Facebook has had to find ways of relaying to you, to your screen, content that it believes is important. And on average, there's about 1,500 different types of content which basically are streamed your way, pushed your way whenever you switch on your phone. Clearly, it accounts for the fact that we can all swipe very quickly. It also accounts for the fact that we never get down to the bottom of the list sometimes. And Facebook too learns on which types of content are you actually looking at or not looking at. The whole thing, what we mentioned again last time, is that Facebook has essentially killed the idea of organic search. You might have 4,000 people who are actually following you on Facebook. On average, only about 6% of those 4,000 people would actually see your posts. I don't think that statistic has changed dramatically upwards. this year, unless you pay for your posts to become sponsored, in which case all of your followers would actually see whatever it is that you've shared. And that again is a timely reminder, whether we're looking at native advertising, the social graphs, this whole idea of that destruction of organic search on Facebook. We are just looking at, you are essentially using a business to promote your own business, and you're going to need to pay to do that. Various theories, of course, that Facebook is getting us not to live great lives. Studies saying that we're all getting depressed. Watching other seemingly successful people might not necessarily be good for us. Various theories that how clever people are using Facebook to engage with target communities, and how all of that can even skew the way people vote or people's intentions to vote, including misinformation online. This might be quite funny, actually. Somebody said that Facebook knows when you're going to fall in love because of how many, how you post, what you post, the frequency of posting specifically, and how that all drops off when you move away maybe from the business of self-branding into the real life of having a relationship with someone. And yet at the same time, the knockback effect has happened. You are starting now finally to have people saying, look, stop saying technology is causing social isolation. There used to be a time that people used to go home and just watch TV quietly or read the newspaper. We're getting out of the immediate bounded confines of the real lives that we have when you think of small places like Malta specifically. So several theories kicking around over there. About just over a year ago, this network came about called Hello. I don't know if you've ever used it, and the whole idea about Hello, and it got a lot of publicity at the time, was that Hello said, we are not going to take any adverts, we're not going to do anything naughty with your data, we're not going to sell your data. And it really, there's a hell of a publicity. Now, from an academic point of view, it really tells you how there is an increasing awareness with various people that that your data should be yours, shouldn't be somebody else's. And Hello kind of took off. On the other hand, I still don't understand Hello's business model, because most of these social networks are driven by the notion of data sharing intelligence. And if Hello is not going to do that, I don't know how else it's going to survive. And I certainly don't know too many people within my immediate circle that are using the site, even though it's a beautifully designed and very clean network compared to the clutter that you faced when you get to engage with Facebook, I guess. So again, at the time about a year ago, people were saying, Hello might or might not replace Facebook, but Facebook won't last forever. Who knows? We'll have to check this out in a couple of years' time. One of the things that you really need to now just focus on is this. I am assuming that all of you will be wanting to engage or use Facebook for your projects at some stage, because whether we like it or not, that's where community has migrated to. That's where the chitter chatter is happening, whether it's some of this, broadcast for business purposes is happening, and where people are reacting to whatever people post, which has a business nature. Two tricks. One of the things is you really use social networks for two things. One is to educate, inform, help. The other one, sadly, is entertainment, sometimes of the lowest form of entertainment. That's really how this community kind of swings and between the extremes of I've got something a bit interesting content for you to look at, and the other one is the various lolcats. So if you want to nurture your community, keep that, particularly using Facebook, have that in the back of your mind. Again, I'll repeat what Stephen B. Johnson said. We are now in the age where it's not some particular wisdom of the crowd that we have, but the wisdom, again, of people who are influential, someone in the crowd. It's not that the network itself it's smart, it's that in the individuals people within the network got smarter because they are connected to the network. And then again, that's the magnificent opportunity which is provided to your generation, that if you have an amazing idea, or even if you're just running a business from a tiny island like Malta, you can be smart enough to use these social networking tools to reach out and engage with online others via the screen. And yet, if you're in business, we need to be talking about network values, and sadly, that all boils down to money and sales. Because in the social world, we have to remember also that the paths to sales have changed, haven't they, over the past years? And it's changed again because of this, circulation of content that we're talking about. So again, businesses now need to invest resources not just in creating and disseminating content, but in managing, as I said, this circulation of content on whatever interactive platforms you believe your target customers are using. And the idea is to use personalized messages on social media at different stages, where your prospects might be hanging around, and some of these messages can be very persuasive. If you remember early on, I had said there are and we'll have a session on content marketing. There are really three dynamics here. One is persuading somebody that you are credible, that your product is credible, and through various techniques. The second one is engaging in having some conversation, or at least some sort of dialogue on whatever platform there is, and then using word of mouth, these horizontal exchanges, sometimes between your community. These are three different dynamics of how content marketing is working. And yet, whether you're a cafe, or whether you're a beauty product, or somebody selling beauty products, the easiest way of selling anything to anyone is selling it to your existing customers. Reaching out then in terms of word of mouth, that's where your social networks hopefully can start to activate content and circulate content on social networks and put it to good use. And then the third thing is those people who will find you via organic content. So again, forget the Facebooks of this world, I guess, but you might have advertising as well, and you might have search engine optimization for your organic content. But at each different layer, whether you have existing customers, whether you're relying on word of mouth, or you're really fishing around for new customers, this magic word called advocacy, and I want to spend some time on this, can come into play. The various brand personalities that we've spoken about, singers endorsing ice creams, okay, all sorts of things that what we used to watch on TV, has all migrated online, hasn't it? The idea is that the brand advocate is 50% more likely to influence a purchase. So again, it's one thing having your little cafe. It's another thing having, I don't know, a singer or a footballer who turns up and says, this is a great place where I can have a cup of coffee, for instance, in peace and quiet. Okay, brand advocate is 50% more likely to influence a purchase, and yet only 20% of brands use these advocate and expert programs in their marketing. So it's a word of advice for your project. Maybe that's something that you could consider. It is not very difficult in Malta to actually get one of these so-called celebrities to help you on your project. And we've had examples of that in some projects that students did in the past. So the whole idea is really, which intermediaries are really influential and trusted in your sector. So who are these advocates? Who are these trust agents in your particular sector? And do you know how to do three things, I guess: engage with them, and direct them, and add value to them. Online tools, there's plenty of online tools to try and identify who these influential people might be, and how you can measure their influence. Tools like Clouds, like Cred, one of the most useful is Hootsuite. If you had some money to spend, Brandwatch is extremely useful. It's about finding somebody in your particular sector that is influential. In Malta, it should be much easier to do. You need to target content creators in your niche communities, and these might be bloggers, vloggers, advocates, online commentators. Who are these people who are actually creating content which might be useful to you? And I guess the interesting one is, this is like any other human being, isn't it? If you need someone, you don't just turn up cold and say, I need you now. You might need to be nurturing a relationship before you actually start to need people. So understand what influencers really care about before making their approach. If you're running a steakhouse, don't approach a celebrity who's a vegetarian, just to use a very stupid example. Okay, understand what influencers really care about. Okay, understand who their audience is, what authority they have, what the social capital is all about. Going back to network value, but it's about sales, about influence. What is this? We deconstruct what we mean by network value. It's the staying power. It's the long-term viability of a product or service. Something which is very sticky. It's the complementary benefits, products or services that add additional value to the network, and the notion of exchange. Every product or service is subject to network effect, fosters some kind of exchange, and there's value in that exchange. Some more about influencers being key to business. Okay, we know that people trust people, not necessarily logos. It's only going to become more important as we go along. About 84% of millennials actually do not like any form of advertising whatsoever. The online community, however, continues to be a very noisy place. We said that to try and get attention when about 1,500 different types of content come on board every single time you switch on Facebook. That tells you how competitive the space is, and I guess that's why people are very important for us. People help us filter out the noise, and the one thing we now need to learn is that there's so much information, clutter, misinformation coming via the screen. It's about who do you trust, and inevitably we are hardwired to trust people. So somebody, whether it's a celebrity or somebody we know, people who are, I can trust Gina from Skinny Taste for Food. She knows a lot about food. I trust Nigella Lawson to talk to me about cakes. The same way I trust my father to tell me about garages, I guess. So who are these people? Where do we find them? Again, if these are people creating content, remember, it's not just the celebrities we're talking about. We're also talking about people your age who can, and you should be joining them as part of this project, creating some quality content, people who create buzz. The whole idea is that celebrities always have reach. Of course, you're a celebrity against somebody who's got 110, hundreds of thousands of followers on Twitter, for instance. And yet the truth lies somewhere at this point, isn't it? The advocates and employees who have much more resonance. People closest to you can have tremendous influence. This is something a lot of people forget, and which is why I'm also encouraging you, when you're looking at your projects, and I hinted at some of this in the work you've done on blogging, you and your employees fronting your a project is just much more truthful sometimes than anything else. So that's the other side of the spectrum to having celebrity endorsement. 41% of people believe employees, for instance, are more trustworthy than a company CEO or PR department. I mean, going back to where you find influencers, anything from Google, companies normally have databases. It's amazing how, in this age when we're trying to mix, data and the cloud and social media and mobile technologies, we forget that we already have streams of emails and people's names. And those are the best ways, sometimes, these databases, of getting us to the right networks. Sometimes marketplaces, what people are actually engaging in e-commerce, for instance. Those are also useful places to find who is influencing who. I mean, best possible scenario, we said about, engaging with people beforehand. 8 things influencers can do for you. Reach and resonance. You can have, somebody, who's posting a lot, and you can piggyback onto that. Okay. The resonance side is more related to people that you are likely to know. Sure, I might skip some of these things actually, because you can find a lot of this information on very useful tools like SlideShare, for instance, which is where I've picked up some of this information. I mean, for example, again, this is an interesting one about which I've paused on here. Spark conversation in your community, and this kind of neighbor effect. A lot of you are doing projects where you can easily lever on your student community on campus if you want to make your project work become less academic in a way, and more real, I guess. In the same way that in the past I've had people who are baking cupcakes and went out on campus and filmed people's reactions as they were biting into these cupcakes, for instance. Okay. And you can use advocates and influencers for all sorts of reasons. Sometimes things go wrong. Okay, and the ideal world is when your community comes to your defense when things actually go wrong. When you're working with influencers, what do you need to know? You need to have an idea that they really have an audience. So if you have somebody from Winter Moods over here, which is why I keep on seeing Ivan from Winter Moods on billboards, I mean, people are assuming that this person has both audience and authority. I guess in terms of how you pitch to these people, you also have to pitch to somebody who's going to be an advocate on the benefits, the specifics, and the deadlines. Okay. An example of a pitch here. There are 2 examples of a pitch. One is when you actually approach some of these people. And the first here, so this is called an OK influencer pitch, when somebody, this is assuming that somebody who's got a blog and somebody is approaching Natalie, who runs the blog, and telling her that they love her blog post. Then they try and say, by the way, we run a boutique. Let me know if you have any questions. It's a bit going round and round and round, isn't it? And, we'd like to send you some stuff from the side. It doesn't know if that resonates with your style. The whole idea is, would you like to help our boutique? Here's another approach, which is much more direct, which says, hi, Natalie. I absolutely love your blog, especially the whatever it is, this particular thing. I've got a limited opportunity for style bloggers that I'd like to run past you, please. Okay, so now the shop is, in a way, becoming much more assertive by telling the influencer, I've got something which is useful for you. Again, this is a useful pitch, not just for your project, I guess. It's whenever you need something from someone, you have very little time within which to get somebody's attention. So in the same way that I've been telling you, and you look at some of those blog comments, use lists, be very direct, be very succinct, be very clear, use pictures. This is where this is all about. So this one says, our team at whatever it is has selected our 9 5-style bloggers. Of course you made the list. So look at the vanity aspect here. Try to coax somebody saying, you're very lucky because we actually chose you as somebody to endorse our projects. So it's much more assertive. We'd like to get the clothes out to you tomorrow. Schedule the video interview in 10 days. Can I get you on our mailing list today? Let me know. It's more human, more direct, more succinct, much more likely to work than the previous pitch, which sort of went round in circles. Okay. Right, other social networks. And this is always a difficult one, isn't it? Because I guess Facebook has crashed everybody else so much that Facebook wants to be the internet. And that's my fear, and there are other people like me whose idea of the internet was that it's a free place when, yes, people can say and do what they want, and yet in this world that we live in now, which is all related to smartphones and apps, that are trying to control everything that you do and say, but also trying to keep you in a very close environment. And yet there are various other social networks which are around with different uses for business, which I would encourage you to look at. I mean, starting with Google Plus. I'm currently using Google Hangouts on Air to run this for you, and I wouldn't be able to do that if Google Plus had not had the facility. And Google Plus started a couple of years ago now, and the whole notion, which seemed very attractive at the beginning, was the idea that you could get people to different circles, because not everybody is a friend, which is what we've been talking about. And it has the whole notion of communities, and there is some really interesting functionality built into the site, where people can learn together and really engage within a bit more closed, more friendly environment than you'd have in the open taxonomy of Facebook, I guess. And Hangouts is what I've just spoken to about. There are two variants. You can either have a Hangout with your friends or with lists of people. I could have run this Hangout if I cut and pasted all 72 emails in a Hangout on Air and turned that into a private Hangout if I wanted to. I didn't have the time, so this is streaming live on air at the moment. Okay, so circles, Hangouts, communities, extremely useful concepts, and that's the whole idea of how you can now. So if I had to look at my circles, I have circles for friends, for my family. Some people, I'm part of a community called MindApp in the US. Some social media guys I'm into. So it enables a more detailed profiling of your potential contacts. And again, brands, of course, have all moved in, and Google Plus offers a lot of interesting opportunities for brands, not least because of the way that Google Plus interfaces seamlessly with YouTube. So you'll find the various Nikes, and then it facilitates pictures and facilitates videos, and there's a lot which can be done. Now, the issue remains, though, that there are many rumors that Google may be on the verge of almost giving up on the notion that Google Plus is a network, and it just remains as a tool which people who use Google can use for different reasons, like I'm using Hangouts on Air right now. I mean, personally, do I use Google Plus a lot? Not as much as I use Facebook. I find more interesting people on Google Plus. So from an academic point of view, I find it much more useful. Is it a social network? I'm not sure. It never quite really took off. Okay. But from a branding point of view, if you've got loads of videos to showcase, loads of pictures to showcase, you could do much worse than looking at Google Plus. So I really advise you to look at that. I mean, here's, for example, some of my communities, for instance, things I'm part of. Okay, something called connected learning, digital culture, digital literacy, social media strategy. There's somebody co-opted me into a group for Maltese people who use Google Plus, all sorts of communities over there. And we've just spoken about Hangouts on Air, and we'll discuss this in the class, because the more I think about it, guys, the more I think that we should go the full hog this time around. And I think your presentations, on the basis that we are going to be losing 2 lectures, since we're going to try and finish this in December, the best thing would be for you to instead of presenting in front of me, is to run a Hangout on Air. And don't get scared. I'll send you links. I'll take you through how this thing works. It takes some working out. It's a bit fiddly at the beginning, but I think you'll find it extremely rewarding, and I think it's a tool that you will use in later life. Okay. And there's also people using Hangouts on Air. I mean, I just remember, I just have found this very funny, actually. There was somebody called the Church of God at Williamsburg, in New York, a particularly nice part of the world, by the way. But it just, when I clicked on it, trying to find out what was happening over here, I found a video of this chap. And he seemed to be on his own, but he couldn't care less. He was delivering a sermon, and it didn't matter that nobody was actually around physically to listen to him as a pastor. He was just using a hangout on air, because as far as he was concerned, the whole world could potentially listen to him. It's quite funny, actually. So if you look at Google Plus, you're looking at something which is a bit much more than a social network. It's really an online communications platform. You're looking at, as opposed to Facebook, it's integrated. That's the most important thing, into every Google service, from Gmail to YouTube to Google Drive to Blogger to AdWords. Again, this is why Facebook is now trying to kick back by making sure that in a way you can upload video seamlessly onto Facebook, and in a way trying to stop people uploading YouTube clips onto Facebook. Okay, so there's a bit of a defense strategy there. But the idea of Google Plus is that it provides you with unique tools, Hangouts on air, video conferencing, interfacing seamlessly with your YouTube channel, and you can use that to edit, to optimize the brand. It's pretty much what I'm trying to do very crudely today. I won't be doing any editing, I'm afraid, but these are very, very useful tools for anybody who's interested in marketing, and you need to explore them. There's a friend of mine, a lady called B.L. Oakman, who has built a business around Google Hangouts. Some of them are for free, but then she uses Google Plus as a way of actually doing consulting work and teaching people then how to use Google Plus for business purposes. It's worked very well for her. The one social network you will need to use, whether you like it or not, once you put on a suit or a dress, some tie, and whatever it is. I mean, once you get into the world of business, you're going to be looking at using LinkedIn, and because LinkedIn is a fantastic application of the theory of weak ties that we're talking about. That's about having two people who actually know each other. This chap, though, has a very weak tie. So these are people who meet every day at work. This is somebody whom this chap meets once a year when they go to the jazz festival, for instance, and these are friends of this other person who this chap meets when they go to the jazz festival. And as far as this guy is concerned, I mean, this is completely very, very, very weak ties to this guy, and this is almost like an absent tie. He might have groups. These two guys really don't know each other. And what LinkedIn does is it tries to activate this, that by getting the network effect to work and spread. So very, very quickly, it's not difficult to build up a network of 500 people, and using the referral system. I know him, I vaguely know him, he knows this other chap, and I can ask this chap for permission to get me to refer to this guy, let alone that, basically LinkedIn starts to relax some of these rules to enable people to start to pretend, I want to get hold of this guy on LinkedIn, and I'll just say I'm a friend, and I hope that he or she responds back. But weak ties work particularly well for job searches. If you look at LinkedIn these days, it really is the largest professional social network around. It's all about humanizing your brand, used extensively for recruitment, extensively for people spying on people who they're doing business with. Endorsements are extremely important. I've never really fished out for them, to tell you the truth. Occasionally people are nice and they come in and you've done a piece of work and say nice things about you. And that's, as I said several times, the brand, your brand, must not live with you. It really must live in the voices of your customers talking to each other. I guess LinkedIn provides a platform for all of those voices. Okay, and there are many businesses that have now been built in around LinkedIn. I would advise you, again, I repeat this today, to look at SlideShare, which has been bought by LinkedIn recently. This is a way of how you can share slides like this, put them online, and LinkedIn is facilitating this on its side again. So LinkedIn, it's a niche network, very much a business people social network. business-to-business marketing platform. You can belong to groups, person-to-organization networks, people connecting to each other they know or want to know professionally, people recommending others they have worked with. Very, very businessy. I had taken a screen grab of my profile just to show you essentially how you can, again, project yourself as to who are you. So this, so mine says strategist and digital media academic. You put in a mugshot, hopefully on a decent day. You show off your education. You then, all of these are keywords which are extremely important for organic search. And even search within the LinkedIn taxonomy when people are looking for other people like them, or maybe a service that people can find. I have occasionally got consulting gigs via LinkedIn. Okay, so developing a professional summary statement is extremely important, and then you fill in your specialities with your keywords. So these were mine at the time. Business strategy, connected learning, business planning, e-business, startups, digital literacies. All of those are peppered in my profile. And this is what I mean about, the basic endorsements. You should try and update your status at least weekly. You should show which groups you're part of. I guess you should find a way also, and there is a way that your LinkedIn URL is closer to your name. It would be nice if one found the time. I wish I had more time, to answer people's questions and things like that. There's a very, very vibrant community of people helping each other on LinkedIn. We will discuss at some stage discussion boards as well outside the taxonomy of LinkedIn. And if you get the people again like BL Oakman, I mean, she's got, it's just spying on what she's doing on LinkedIn. She's interfacing seamlessly with even all the other stuff she's got on other platforms. Interesting stuff. The whole idea of networking on professional networks is it goes back to this: what do you really want to do? What is your message? What are you trying to get out of this thing? So some simple words of advice, really. One, do get your profile up there and connected. I know if you're a student, it looks like you've done nothing in your life. I still think it's worthwhile putting in a LinkedIn profile. You might have volunteered, you might have done some work somewhere, you might have done a presentation you want to share, you might have done a little video that you can share. It's not a bad place to start from. In a way, sometimes you say you're more experienced than you think once you start to write it down. Some people will actually get hold of you via LinkedIn's own inbox capabilities. Yes, you do have to get personal, so you can't be formal all the time, even though clearly LinkedIn is a much more formal network than Facebook ever can be. You should give a helping hand when people ask for it. Okay, you should answer questions if you can. Do update your status. Do your homework before you approach people. Simple little tricks, for example. If you want to connect with someone, LinkedIn immediately comes up with a sentence that which you could use. Like it says, "Dear John, I'd like to add you to my LinkedIn network," for instance. You can easily override that and put in a much more personal message than that to differentiate you from other people wanting to get hold of John, for instance. Okay. How to prepare for it? Look out for potential business leads. Target groups by activity level, really, not by size. There are some groups that have a lot of people over there, but it's there's not much going on over there. So look at the ones where there's things which are being posted on a regular basis. Again, a little trick. There's another site which I can mention, which is called about.me, which I also find very useful and gets a lot of hits. So there are now new social networks being developed where essentially all you need to do is put in a decent picture of yourself and a couple of paragraphs about who you are, and then on that particular page, so on about.me/AlexGregg, I think it is, you'll find all my other social networks are kind of nesting in one place, because we are interacting with different groups of people in different ways. It's useful just to have one repository where you can have all of this together. So about.me is another one you could potentially be looking at. I'm certainly not a fan of One Direction, but all sorts of people are hanging around on LinkedIn. In this particular case, Bea Oakman, because she wanted to get traffic for something that she was writing about on LinkedIn, of course, puts up a mugshot of One Direction, and she's talking about what she's talking about from LinkedIn. She's being quite clever, using LinkedIn to talk about Google Plus Hangouts, which is where she really makes her money, using One Direction because that's good for search engine optimization. Okay, driving traffic to where she really wants people to be finding her. Do you remember when we say, where's your home? Is it your website? Is it your blog? In BL's case, it's pretty much Google Plus and Google Hangouts. I'd like to just very quickly talk about photo sharing because it's pretty much how I got into social media, sharing pictures, writing around photographs. The idea, what we need to understand is that the human brain processes visuals 60,000 times faster than text, which is again why, in a way, because we're all using these devices, we're losing a lot of our literacy. We're not writing and reading so much, we're scanning and swiping, and the prettier the pictures, the more we consume. But that's the idea. Pictures much more quickly consumed than text ever can be. So in the last 6 months, every major social network has increased the importance of visual content as a means of capturing consumers. So that tells you where the world is going again. But in a way, it's kicked back. All the old social networks have had a bit of a revival. And then there's, Instagram has now gone from being a pictorial social network to then embedding video, and it's a social network in its own right. Flickr, which used to be, again, my point of departure in a way, and I would strongly advise all of you to spend some time with Flickr if your project generates some wonderful pictures. There are entire communities of people there. And the third one is, the third big one out there is also Pinterest. We'll mention some others later. Okay, so this long tail, as we say, of networks dictates that niches continue to thrive, whether they're geographic or special interest. There's people out there. There's a guy called Jay Bear who I occasionally listen to. So there's a post on Medium as it happens, a bit of the video, and he's talking about the importance of visuals, continuing importance of visuals. I can't bore you enough to tell you that nowadays a blog post which is just as text is much less likely to be picked up than a blog post with text. Same thing with Twitter, which we will look at over the next couple of weeks. Okay, so again, how can we market with pictures? That's how all of these things start to come together. It really becomes an issue of quality versus the mass share. Flickr, which is now seamlessly embedded into your smartphone with various apps and loads of storage space, so you can keep your pictures on the cloud. Used to be about 92 million users. Who knows? I mean, it's probably about 110 million users ever since I started cutting and pasting some of the stuff that you're going to find on Flickr. Politicians have been very, very, very keen to use Flickr as an audit trail. So again, think about it. If you had to have within your project a day in the life of something, and you're taking a lot of pictures, you could use Facebook almost like Flickr to catalog that day. So David Cameron here, of course, his people are using it very smartly. So almost you can see beat by beat this chap or his party is supposed to represent somebody's interests. Okay, the number 10 Downing Street photo stream shows all sorts of information. And you can then take it to the other extreme, where you have Nikon, who of course sell expensive cameras. There's loads of people there, and the Nikon site, as opposed to buy this particular camera, is really about pictures which are taken by people using Nikon and creating a community of photographers around there. We should talk about Pinterest maybe in class, but just just to remind you, if your target group is women, again, women have flooded in the droves to Pinterest because women tend to be much more visual than men anyway. Pinterest is great for lists. I mean, Pinterest can also do what Pearltrees does in a way, that you can collect sites which have a visual element and then group them into categories which can be useful for you. The whole idea is it seems to have much more longevity than other networks. Whilst whatever you place on Facebook is here today and gone tomorrow, a picture which you place on Pinterest is likely to keep on being discovered several months down the line. Something which is extremely important. All of you guys who are into catering, who can take pictures of your food, or even the Max Factor people, really look into this. So I do not ignore Pinterest by any means, okay? Anything which implies photography, particularly if you've got a female audience or female target groups, okay? They've got some really, I mean, Pinterest renders very nicely on tablets. It's really got a huge growth, okay? And the potential for e-commerce, people keep on saying it's going to be great. So we're still waiting in a way. But certainly from a branding point of view, from a publicity point of view, it's an absolutely great tool, okay? This is an old post just about when Instagram and chat started to take off, okay? And Snapchat. And Snapchat, we all know what that Snapchat really became popular because of sexting. But the rule of the game remains that whenever there is a chance of brands engaging with audiences, even if the very content itself is supposed to disappear, there is, the market is still moved in. And I would like to pause, probably finish with this particular slide, which is US based. We're looking at December 2014 demographics, and they are extremely indicative of what's going on in different age groups. So if you're looking at the bottom, you've got people aged 18 to 24, all the way up to people aged 65 plus. So I guess you guys are probably somewhere here, isn't it, in the first bit, and you'll start to find some interesting statistics here. Let's compare Facebook, which has 16% of the 18 to 24 demographics, and Snapchat, which has dazzling 45%. So if you had some products which are very much targeting this particular age group, I mean, and again, look at things like Vine, look at Tumblr. So 16%, Facebook versus 28% Vine, which is this looping videos, no more than 6%. Look at Pinterest, and Pinterest is interesting because Pinterest is is very, very evenly spread around here. Okay, so of course you can say the same thing applies to Facebook. You can say Facebook has been a success story because look at this, 65%, 65 plus people. Okay, it's still very much working over there. But I find this demographic very interesting, and I think it's a good helicopter view as we conclude on the snapshot on social networks. Do not make the mistake of assuming that Facebook is social networking, because the Google Pluses, the LinkedIn's, even Twitter can operate as a social network, and we'll spend quite a bit of time on that. Okay, the landscape is changing. Nobody's saying that Facebook is going to go away, but the demographic uptake implies that very young people are starting to get bored with Facebook and moving on to other platforms in search of something else. And from a marketing point of view, that it should imply something to you guys. Okay, so there's endless opportunities now of transmitting these viral messages. We will revisit these when we get when we get to looking at video, from passing along incentives, shock, going undercover and stuff like that. Okay. If you look at Snapchat into your marketing strategy, plenty of little case studies. There's one from McDonald's, for instance, that you can look at. I'm not going to show you videos now, but maybe we can look at some videos when we are back in class, I guess. That's pretty much what I wanted to share with you guys today. I also wanted to use this medium, at least at one juncture, just to explain that there are things we can do now which we couldn't do at any other time. I could really have used this as a proper hangout. I could have informed you beforehand and said that, at 2 p.m., whatever it is on this day, I'm going to be online, and I can accommodate up to 10 people on my screen down here, and we could actually have had this interactive conversation. Maybe we may try and do that in a hangout in the future. Okay, so that's it, guys. Again, apologies, I couldn't be there on the Thursday. I'll see you next week. You take care of yourselves.